Guys, we're back. This is round 2, episode 2. So let's go. This is episode 2 of Like Father, Like Son. I feel like we could even rename this for the day, because this is kind of like father, like son, and son, because my little bro Kobe, who's off camera right now, he's gonna be chiming in too. So he's here to support and offer some of his insight too. Mm-hmm. All right, so guys, just to give a quick overview, because we're gonna be on for about an hour today again, and I want people to trickle in, and then I want people to stay on the full hour if they can. So just to kind of give you guys a quick overview of what's gonna happen today, we're obviously gonna be talking about takeaways from episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance, which aired last Sunday. Episodes 5 and 6 are airing tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. So we're gonna get into that a little bit too. We're gonna also close out the show with some fun topics. You know, last week I told you guys that me and my pops were gonna talk about MJ versus Kobe in a series of games of 1-on-1. So we're gonna talk about that, and I'm gonna give my dad an opportunity to explain himself. Ooh, all right. Man. So last week my guy Steve asked a critical question. He said, so Pops, are you a bandwagon fan? So we kind of, played around with that a little bit last week, had some fun with it when I was posting some promo this week. So I'm gonna let you explain that, kind of talk about.
Real simple. It's gonna be simple.
All right, we'll see. We'll let the people decide that. So we'll get into that, and then don't forget you can call in on IG Live. So if you can offer your comments and your questions, but if you want to also just call in and go split screen, go live with us during this hour, you can definitely do that. Let's get into it.
Let's make it happen.
All right, so Dad, major takeaway from episodes 3 and 4 was the Pistons, the bad boy Pistons. They get swept by the Bulls in 91, and they decide to walk off the court.
Oh man,
I'm gonna let you open that up.
It was weak. That's all I can say. And I know that Isaiah is trying to say that that's what they did. Number one, Isaiah followed the lead of Lambeer, and Bill Lambeer, just because he was a co-captain, didn't mean that he was making a determination to make a move like that, because it was weak. After getting swept, if anything, I would have rather them walk off with the tails between their legs, with tears in their eyes, because they totally got destroyed in that series. And instead of providing this respect like Michael Jordan had provided in the past losses to the Detroit Pistons, they didn't even have common sense and sportsmanship to go out there and say, hey, good game. I saw Michael do it on a couple of occasions when they lost.
Well, they lost. So Dad, they lost. I believe the Bulls and the Pistons saw each other in the playoffs like 4 back-to-back years, like 4 straight years. Obviously, that would mean that they lost the first 3 years and then they won that 4th. Mm-hmm. So this is what I don't understand, right? Because Isaiah Thomas has been talking on First Take. He's been on ESPN's Get Up. He's been on some shows this week.
Right.
Bill Lambeer, who I just can't stand. They've been offering their sentiments, and my whole thing is like this. Listen, back then, okay, so you get swept by this team. They beat you fair and square. You get swept, and you walk off. You can't get them a head nod. You can't say anything to them, nothing, right? Mm-hmm. Hold up, Frank. Video came out where Larry Bird said he walked out on the Pistons pride. No, we're gonna get to that, Frank. That's a good point. Right. We're gonna get to that. Right. But this is my issue, right? So Isaiah's whole thing is like, listen, this is how the torch is passed, right? He's trying to make this claim. This is how the torch is passed.
Because Boston did it to them.
But at the same time, I guess my whole thing is, and I wasn't living during that time, so I mean, I was like a baby. So you'll be able to speak to it more, Pops. But my thing is, if Jordan and Pippen and the Bulls, after getting like physically, not just losing in terms of from a basketball standpoint, but also physically losing, like physically being beat, if they can go and shake these guys' hands, dab up with them, and give them some type of congratulatory message, that sort of thing, before they walk off the court. Right. If they can do that 3 straight years, I just don't understand. I just personally don't understand how the Pistons could not do that. I don't
know where Piston got. I mean, where he got that from, saying that it is something that they did on a regular basis. I don't recall it. I followed the game like that, and I can't point to another time when the team just walked off the court like that without greeting the winning team.
Well, the problem is that the Celtics did it. The Celtics did it to the Pistons, but like we said before, I was talking to my Uncle Mel about this. We were talking about it. And they were talking about it on, I think, even First Take at some point this week.
And I remember when that happened.
But nobody talks about it.
Right.
Everybody talks about what Detroit did, right? So I would say this: there can't be a double standard, right? If if the Celtics did that to Detroit and Detroit did that to the Bulls, it should be talked about in the same breath. You know, the Celtics should be criticized for that as well.
And it's interesting that happened with the Celtics. You don't know whether it's because the Celtics were mainly a white team or if it was another reason behind them not getting some backlash about doing that. But it was wrong even when I saw that happen. So, you know, I'm the same way, no matter what team it is, it should be sportsmanship after the game to greet the winning team and move on. Because that kind of puts the hard feelings behind, and now you got bitterness that follows and continues to follow in these guys' lives even to this day, many years later. Some guys still have bitterness towards one another.
But you know what, Dan, I'll push back a little bit. I'll say this, right, because I'm a fan of guys like Ray John Rondo. I'm a fan of Russell Westbrook, and I know they're the type of people that they will walk off the court. I mean, I saw Rondo do it before. I've seen Russell Westbrook do it. So I'm not, listen, if you're gonna walk off the court, okay, but just own up to the fact that you walked on the court. Don't years later. Don't try to act like it didn't really happen.
But this was kind of weak, mainly weak. I can understand if a personality can't control themselves to the point where they feel like it's better for me to walk off because I can't face somebody. That just shows you might be a coward. But I'm talking about a team as a whole to agree to something like that.
Yeah.
Lambeer tapped him on the side. And Isaiah went with the flow. Isaiah probably wasn't even going to do it until Lambeer pointed that out. And they even showed a video of it.
You see what Derek just said?
What Derek
Shout out to my guy, Derek, at Lark Knight. He's at Lark_Knight. He said walking off before the game ends is different. And hey, look, what
walking off before the game is worse.
And that's what the Celtics did.
Yeah,
well, you know, Isaiah, from the footage I saw, Isaiah had to kind of pull Kevin McHale, right? Pull his arm to try
because he happened to be walking
to
off the court at the time, and then he kind of shook his hand and they moved on.
Now look what Frank said. That's an interesting point. Frank said when the Celtics walked off, it was probably perceived as them doing it with grace. When the Pistons do it, it's classless. Skin color is the issue. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree with that.
Now, and you correct me if I'm wrong with the Celtics. So I know that the Pistons were obviously viewed as a dirty team. They were very physical. Were the Celtics really physical back in those times?
Oh, they were dirty. I can say that.
So I don't understand.
I don't know. You know, physicality. You know, some of the guys didn't have the athletic ability that some other players had, so they had to use, you know, some cheap shots to get ahead. I liked some of the Pistons players were good. Dumars was unbelievable, man, and that guy was a classy guy. So I can't put all the Piston players in the same boat in terms of how they played the game. But Lambeer was one I wasn't a fan of. Dennis Rodman was just, he was like that, but that was just the way this guy played.
But Dennis was still great.
Right.
On that
he
team,
was a good athlete, though, but he just was a physical player. But anytime you try to cause somebody to get hurt where they could get a career-ending injury, that's where I have to cross the line.
So, Pops, are you saying that everybody on that squad, and I'm mainly the guys who are in the rotation, are you saying that everyone didn't buy into that whole bad boys persona?
I'm not saying they didn't buy into that because they were a team and they were a unit, and I believe that they all came out there to be physical, but it may have been a couple on the team that just went over the top and I think tried to hurt guys opposed to just, you know, fouling hard or something like that, because that's going to happen.
Now, what do you think about this? So, of course, my boy Elvis just said something. At the end of the day, Pistons also had the bad boy image, so it almost was expected. That's thus making it easy for media to put emphasis on the walk off. As a player, I've experienced it a lot on the AAU circuit. He said, so I kind of understood it. Okay, yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying about like you said, individual personalities. Like when I look at Rondo, I expect him to walk off. When I look at Russell Westbrook, when they lost to Golden State, after Golden State came back after they were down 3-1, I can understand him walking off. But KD, personality is different. KD's gonna stick around. He's gonna shake hands, that sort of thing. But like you said, it was more of like the team. The fact that the team did that.
They agreed to do it as a team. So I don't know what they were trying to accomplish by the team just choosing to do that as a team, you know.
And then on top of that, I was looking at footage because they were showing it in the doc, and just stuff that I watched this week. I thought it was just funny because, like, you saw the footage of Lambeer being interviewed after that game, after they got swept, and the only thing he could say about the best compliment he had for the Bulls, which I know is hard to give a compliment after you get swept. He was just like, "Look, they beat us." He didn't want to answer no other questions. He just said, look, they beat us,
Right.
and that was about it. You heard Dennis Rodman. You heard Dennis at the time say, I'm not giving the Bulls any type of credit.
Right.
And this is my thing, man. The reason that I kind of take issue with that is because if the team that finally beat you after like the fourth time that you guys have been in battle, if that particular team, every time they lost the 3 times prior to that, they were able to come to you and dap you up and just kind of say, all right, man, good luck to y'all moving forward. If they can do that, I personally don't understand. I just don't get it. How after you finally get beat, right? You were at the mountaintop, they dethroned you.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously did it in a more, not in a dirty,
Classy,
in a more
right.
classy way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, how can you not? Are you telling me that at that particular point you still can't give no type? You can't give nothing. Like you can't give no credit even after it's all over. I don't understand. Now maybe that has something to do with what MJ said after Game 3,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because MJ after Game 3, you heard what he said when he was. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he basically said something along the lines of,
They don't represent
the Pistons are not a good.
yeah.
They're not a good champion for a championship team for the league. They're not a good representation of the league. Something along the lines of that. So what do you think about them taking issue with that? Because Isaiah said oh, that hurt me personally.
Right.
He was all hurt
He
by
hurt
what
him
MJ
personally.
said.
Well, in terms of being the champion, you want to be the, it's always about the good guy, the bad guy type of thing going on out there. And of course, so many people love Michael Jordan to the point where they felt like he was the good guy and these guys were the bad guys. So sure, people are going to have this type of attitude when it comes to judging them based on that and how they represent the NBA, because you want the NBA to be represented by somebody that can market the game. And obviously, Michael Jordan would market that game. And so what's your thoughts on that?
I hear what you're saying from like a business standpoint and a marketing standpoint, but as a basketball, we both play basketball. I don't think you're really thinking about that in those moments. You're just competing. But I guess the whole thing is like I think Charles Barkley and Dan Patrick were talking. Charles was on Dan Patrick's show, and he was basically saying that Dan Patrick was saying to him that he couldn't believe that David Stern, as a commissioner at that time, was just allowing teams like the New York Knicks,
Play dirty,
the Detroit
and that
Pistons,
type of thing.
apparently the Miami Heat at that time were playing dirty like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really my main thing about it,
and
man.
dirty
If you're
play
gonna
is
play
the key,
basketball,
right?
play basketball, man.
Yeah, dirty play is just not acceptable no matter what. If you can block his shot, you don't have to step on his foot to block his shot.
Hold
right?
on for a second.
Use your
Because guys, we streaming on IG Live and Facebook Live, and I'm gonna get to you, Derek. I saw your response, but shout out to Mr. Hooper.
What's going on, Hoop?
Your boy Dwayne Hooper said, ironically, every time I beat your pops on the court back in the day, he never dapped me up. Is that true?
That's not true. That's definitely false. And I think, Hoop, you better go back to the record books, baby. You were a football player, not basketball.
It's funny because I remember our battles, our 2-on-2 battles with me and you. But it was me and DJ versus
DJ
you.
yeah.
I remember those days back when we were younger.
Well, of course, we beat y'all up in that game. So
I'm acting like I don't remember any of that. Something that Elvis laughing at y'all. So, something that Derek said. 7.9 seconds left on the clock. Walking off. That's just salty. He said they knew what they were doing. I agree.
Oh yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing.
All right. So, so Isaiah was saying that he tried to take it a step further, right? He tried to blow it up even more and say that MJ's remarks before Game 4 of 91 Conference Finals, he was saying that was a jab, that was a shot at the city of Detroit.
That was definitely off base, man, because it had nothing to do with the city. And, of course, he brought that in. That was the first time I actually heard that remark just recently.
He had to take it to a
about him pointing out that the city had dealt with so much negativity, and all the Bulls did was pile that on by making that statement, for Jordan making that statement. But I can't even see how he tried to connect the two. This was about the team. This was about personalities, and that's all I can say about that one.
It was so interesting because we were talking about it offline earlier today, and I think I was saying if anything, and some people were going to take issue with this, but I was saying if anything, it almost seems like Detroit did that to themselves. The Pistons did that to their own city, because if you're known as a dirty team, people are going to essentially attach that, and it's unfair, but they're going to attach that to the city, right?
I
can see how that would happen.
Well, they got that nickname, Bad Boys, and they took ownership of it, and I think they ran with it. And, the Bad Boys, they felt meant playing dirty, and if they felt like they could get away with it during the course of the season, playing against guys. I guess they felt like they could do it if they got away with it. Because I don't know how many guys got kicked out of games. I guess have to look back at the numbers on that to see if guys were getting thrown out of the game like they are nowadays.
Well, I mean, now you have the flagrant ones and flagrant twos. You guys didn't have that back in the day. The hand checks, y'all didn't.
And I do also recognize that, you know, today's game is a lot different than the game in the past because it was rivalries and it was a lot of dislike between teams. I know Philadelphia was a team that I was a fan of for many years, and it was a battle between Philly and Boston for years, you know, and they didn't like each other. I know my main man, Dr. J. I found a photo of Larry Bird trying to choke him in a fight in the middle of the court. You know what I mean? So these type of things happen. And, but nowadays, guys are hanging out together because they're making all this money. They're good, close friends.
Yeah, the money's
so it's a whole different thing. That's one of the things and reasons why I kind of get a kick out of Westbrook, because Westbrook, he can carry that hate.
He's got that 80s and 90s.
He's got that, man. And
Rondo does too.
He do a lot of talking during games. So, but it's not too many that do a whole lot of talking like they did back in the day.
All right, so Mr. Hooper, and I don't know, I'm gonna call you who. So Mr. Dwayne Hooper is saying here, what made the Detroit Pistons walk off even worse was the fact that Magic and LA gave the Bulls big props after they lost the championship to them. Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah,
you want to say about that? They were showing you Magic. I think he stuck around, right? Because the Lakers beat them 4-1. I think it was like a gentleman's sweep. I think it was.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, and after that series, Magic actually went back.
Well, the Lakers lost 4-1.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
And then after that series, Magic went back and actually embraced MJ, and that was a big moment. That was a big moment for MJ because he had a lot of respect and love for Magic. That's a good point, Hoop.
Yeah, and I think Magic respected good players, and he knew that this guy was over and much better than so many that had come before him. He knew he was great, and he respected that because you were on the court. Matter of fact, I can think back of when Isaiah was interviewed one time, and he even said that they looked like kids playing against Michael Jordan. He said that out of his own mouth. Yeah. You can research that and you'll be able to find it. Yep. But he identified the fact that they were like kids out there sometimes when they were playing against Jordan. So
Mike
no question
Mike
about
referred to him, Stephen A. reminded Isaiah that Mike referred to him recently as the second best point guard to ever play the game next to Magic. So I think that sometimes we gotta remember that. I don't think that they have hatred for each other, right? I saw someone write an article about that saying that, one of the biggest takeaways from last week's episodes is that MJ has this long, he's had such a hatred for Isaiah for so many years. I didn't see that. They asked him questions about stuff that happened in the 80s.
Right.
And
you just
naturally
go back to
naturally,
the 80s,
naturally those emotions come back.
That's right.
But I've heard Isaiah say positive things about MJ. I've heard MJ say positive things about Isaiah in the last 5 to 10 years, right?
Yeah, matter of fact, I was looking at an interview recently, and it was some time ago, but Isaiah was saying that he supports the fact that and respects the fact that Michael Jordan is a great player. And he said one thing that he's never heard was Michael Jordan say anything negative about him on camera or on print. And he said he hasn't said anything about Michael on camera or on print. Now, obviously, in a personal talk like this, he may have some negative things to say about him, probably, right?
Frank, he made an interesting point here. He said we have to remember that Isaiah is from Chicago. So
right.
he said, could you imagine his little nephews running around in a Jordan jersey?
He probably had to deal with it because that's the way it was. That. Because if I'm not mistaken, the fans never cheered for Isaiah when Jordan was there playing on the Bulls.
That's gotta hurt.
And that's why it threw me off. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. If y'all saw the All-Star Weekend?
NBA All-Star Weekend.
And I did finally see Michael in that tribute, but for such a long time in that whole weekend, Isaiah was kind of in the mix.
It was kind of weird.
It was kind of weird seeing that with the fact how much hate the Pistons had for the Bulls coming out.
But it
was interesting.
That was for me. I honestly don't think about Isaiah when it comes to the city of Chicago. But then I had to remind myself he's from there, so it made sense for him to be involved. But I'm glad that he paid so much tribute to MJ. They had to. That's only right for them to pay tribute to MJ.
That's right.
Even though he's not from there, he built the Chicago Bulls really.
Right.
Let me see, Elvis. Let me see what he just said here. He said, "Man, Magic sounded like a fan and not a player. He said, I hated how he praised the Bulls, saying he is happy Jordan is amongst the champions. That's weird, man.
Hey, look, unless you play with a guy that makes you look like a little kid, I guess that's why he felt that way, man, because it was just amazing to see this guy in action. You can't deny the greatness. And I'm sure LeBron has probably got that kind of experience with guys in the league now with what he's done and what he's accomplished. In this generation, it's guys that just look up to him as players as well, I'm sure.
Well, no, I think Magic he's different. He's kind of like the guys of today. He's real buddy. I mean, even the way that him and Isaiah had that weird relationship and everything before they had a falling out. He's that type of guy. So I'm not just knowing how Magic is. I'm not surprised that he would go to the locker room and embrace Michael Jordan. That's just his personality.
But he just knows how to separate playing in between the lines and outside of the lines. And I think that's what you have to look at with Magic, because Magic is known to go head-to-head against Michael, especially when he was younger. And they'll tell you about when they were on the USA team together. They had the practices were the most awesome practices. They said they were very competitive, and he was trying to go at Mike a whole lot in those practices. So I saw some footage on that, and many of y'all might have seen some of that as well.
We're gonna get back to the beef between the Pistons and the Bulls, but look, and you actually didn't think that we were gonna get into this topic, but Frank just brought it up. I told you it was a hot topic. He said he wants to hear Pops. He wants to hear your view on Dennis Rodman and his mini vacay, the 48 hours in Vegas.
Well, Karl and I were talking a little bit about that.
I told him that was a hot topic.
And what we identified and recognized is that they were willing to do whatever they had to do so this man would perform when it counted. Yep. And obviously Dennis had a number of issues going on in his life over the years, and they realized that they had been, I can't remember exactly when that took place. Was it between a series or something? But obviously he was getting bored a little bit and his focus was getting off. And I think they were trying to do that to try to allow him to, get a little break in there so he could refocus and get back in the game. Obviously he wasn't going to show up, just like Mike said.
Mike had to go get him from the hotel.
So they took a big chance with that move. And, unfortunately, some guys are favored more than others, because I'm sure some of the guys that weren't top players on the team had an issue with it, but hey, it was all about winning with these guys. So
and like you
as
said,
a coach, I may not have wanted to agree with that, something like that, but if you can get the best out of your player, especially you dealing with a Dennis Rodman, it's not any other Dennis Rodmans in the game. One thing I can say.
No, but I mean, you said it earlier though. I mean, that was just that was a different type of team, man, because Phil and Rodman from what I've been seeing in the doc, they appeared to have a strong bond. I know you had they both had a respect for Native American culture, right?
Right.
So they had that bond, and then like you were saying when we were going over the notes before the show, Phil was a hippie.
Yeah, he was a hippie, man.
Up.
I mean, he used to smoke that pipe. I don't know what was in it, but they used to smoke that pipe. and Phil, was known to be one of those free type of guys, man, and had that kind of thinking going on. And I think that's one of the reasons why they connected, because he sat down to really have a relationship with my man. He wasn't about just come to the game, come to the practice, but he sat down and spent time with Dennis Rodman to kind of get to know the person. Yeah. And I think that's probably why he was willing to be a little lenient with it.
And I feel like once you're coaching at that level, you correct me if I'm wrong, or if you disagree. I think that once you're coaching at that level, at the end of the day, we're all adults. Everybody's a grown man in there. So I think that they, like you said, their focus was winning, and Phil was really good with knowing his personnel and the personalities that he was dealing with. So he's looking at he was probably not looking at it from the standpoint of I'm coaching a high school team or a college team. He's a grown man, and Dennis Rodman, unfortunately, he was going to do whatever he really wanted to do. So I guess they were trying to find that balance between letting him be him, but also trying to get the most they could get out of him on the court.
Yeah, and that was interesting to see how when Scotty was out of the mix, Mike turned to Dennis a lot in the leadership role, and Dennis was enjoying that role. You know what I mean? So he just wanted to be a part of the team, to make this thing work. And only could have been done through Michael Jordan and Pippen on that. And
Hooper seems to agree with us. He said here that regarding Dennis Rodman, great coaches know what they have to give players to get the best performance out of them. And that's the truth. That's always been my gripe with coaches that are not really that effective. They don't know their personnel or don't know how to put guys or girls in the right positions, right? And obviously Phil knew what to do there. Let me see. We got a couple things here. Shout out to my guy Twan, who just jumped in here. He said Magic Johnson is more of an ambassador to the game now, which is awesome. And that's true. That's what I'm saying. I feel like he was kind of ahead of his time with that.
Right.
He really likes the guys and likes having a personal relationship with a lot of the players.
And I think he also realized he had to pass the torch. And the torch was going to be passed to Michael Jordan. And that last championship run, which they just made it in there, Magic in L.A., but for them to pass the torch to Michael, it was kind of complete, and now it was no more pressure about trying to keep chasing after titles because he knew once Mike got that first one, it was going to be over with anyway. So
I almost feel like I'm looking at the comments and the questions. I almost feel like everybody was in our pre-show session because and we're gonna get to my cousin Jonathan. Just tune in.
What's going on, Jonathan?
And he wants to talk about the dream team. We about to get to that, Jonathan.
Yeah.
First, I want to my man what did Elvis just say? This is actually hilarious. He said, he said just give an example with the Dennis Rodman thing. He was saying, for example, you might not know about this, Dad.
Okay.
The younger guys do though.
Okay.
John Wall. Obviously with the Wizards in
John
DC,
Wall.
he hangs out a lot.
Party man. That's right.
And that's what Elvis said. He said you gotta take John Wall as an example.
Yeah, that's
with
true.
With the whole Rose Bar situation, because he makes sure that he gets his party in. And I honestly feel like that injury that he's had that has kept him out for like a season and a half. That I think that has something to do with some partying.
Instead of just an accident that occurred in the crib, stepping off the wrong step.
I never truly believe that.
Right.
Elvis also has a question here. His question is, can we allow players to have that type of break in today's league? Do you think that could happen in today's league?
They get that break already because I hear so many of them that taking days off, unlike back in the day when we were coming up. These guys take breaks. They don't play all the games in the season, and they get that rest time in. And I don't know if they get away from the team, but I know sometimes when they have an injury or something, sometimes they don't travel with the team. I know Kyrie has done that before, and I think LeBron has as well.
Stayed behind in South Beach one time when they were.
Oh yeah, so I'm sure they kind of get that in. It's just not publicized. They don't put it out there so everybody knows. Because Dennis Rodman was going to a place where everybody knew who he was, and it was no hiding.
John, so let's get to what Jonathan, my cousin Jonathan said here. Let's talk about the Dream Team. So, some new developments seem to come out this week about that because everybody, for years has obviously thought that, MJ is the main one that kept Isaiah off the Dream Team. So, I know you want to share something about those new developments.
Yeah,
Magic Johnson spoke
and I heard about it on, I think it was First Take. And I wish I knew the book. You guys probably know what the book was, but Magic Johnson had put a book out, and supposedly in the book, it was some information that said that he was not wanting Isaiah to be on the team. So that kind of threw me because I didn't know about that book, and I'm going to look up to see exactly what he said in that book about why he didn't want Isaiah on the team. Of course, we always knew, and Isaiah even knew that Karl Malone didn't want him on the team, and of course Pippen really can't stand him. He still has a lot of bitterness towards him today. So I don't know how they interact when they're on different shows, shows, and they have to cross paths. That must be interesting to see those two walk past one another. But so Magic is supposed to be on First Take on Monday.
I can't wait.
So we got to check that out because he's going to be asked about this and what he said. And I guarantee you, this is going to be talked about for the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Do you remember when they had a falling out? Because I know they were oddly
inseparable,
extremely close, for a while. But then they had it falling out.
Yeah, it kind of happened. I'd have to look back a little bit, but I know they used to hang out, they used to party, they used to enjoy one another, and then all of a sudden, something took place where you started to see Magic connecting well with other players in the league. And he was having other relationships with other people, and for some reason it seemed like Isaiah was kind of on the back burner. Even when they had that show that we looked at when they were face to face.
Oh yeah,
we looked
the same thing that Kobe and Shaq did.
We looked at that the other day,
and
good. We sat there for a long time, still trying to figure out what in the world caused these guys.
It's like if we have a problem, right? If we have a problem like that, and then we have an opportunity to meet in a public forum like that and sit across the table from one another and have like a full circle moment, shouldn't we address what the problem was?
Right.
They were talking about Michael Jackson. They were talking about
they went to a whole lot of other stuff. Talking about their hangouts.
Talking about.
They were avoiding everything until finally the apology came, but it was still not providing us with any information behind. Yeah. I used to hear rumors about different things, and I can get into some of those rumors. I don't know, but I won't get into those rumors. But it was rumors out there, and I think some of that might have hurt.
When it's rumors that Isaiah was the one who said that, put it out there that Magic had HIV or something. It was something like that, and I think that really created some issues right away.
Right.
If that's 100% true.
Yeah, because I still haven't heard it from those two. So until we hear that from them, which I'm sure Magic will be able to provide some information, because I know my boy Stephen A is going to dig for it. So
I hope so, man. Tune
in. We'll talk about it next week. That's for sure.
Oh look, I gotta ignore Jonathan. Jonathan's crazy. He said let's hear it. Hold on for a second. So Hooper has another question for us. He says, why do you think so many players felt that way about Isaiah? That's a good question, because you were just saying earlier today, it seems like he was the common denominator in a lot of these issues with him.
Yeah, well, not knowing how his personality was, I can't answer that question, to be honest with you, but obviously he rubbed people the wrong way. And, if I'm not mistaken, I heard Pippen say something like backstabber.
So that's what they call him?
Yeah, that's what he said. So I don't know if it was something that was done and it got around the league about him, and that's why guys didn't like him. So I'm not sure, but this is a good thing that we can dig into and find more information about it, because I think it's going to be very interesting.
It's so weird though, man, because I do have to give him a little bit of credit. I think he has evolved, because if I only knew the Isaiah of today, I would think he's one of the sweetest guys today. One of the nicest guys out there.
Yeah.
But when you see the footage from the
early days,
it changes.
Yeah, it was a little different.
Yeah,
it was a little different.
Man, Lambeer, something else that this guy. I just don't like Lambeer, man. It's something else that he said. He said that the Bulls were whiners. He said the Bulls were whiners back in the day, and then that's how they eventually, I guess, won. I don't know. He called them whiners. What do you think?
Is Jonathan still concerned about the Dream Team? Let me just say one more thing about the Dream Team, Jonathan.
He's on here too right now. So.
If you notice, that Dream Team had the same coach that coached Isaiah with the Pistons. That was very interesting, and we didn't get to ask him about it because that coach now has passed away. It's going to be interesting to find out a little bit more, because generally if you have a coach, they're going to get their best player on their team on that team. And I just think maybe they thought that it was going to kind of cause some problems for bringing the guys together as a unit, and it had to be trust there with the guys that were on that team. And that might have had a lot to do with it. Maybe it was some backstabbing going on, but not one Piston was represented on that team. And
that is kind of odd.
It was kind of odd. I thought he should have been on that team. It was a number of people.
Well, you had that was a year you had the college. You had Christian Laettner was on that team, right?
Yeah, and you had what's the guy from Utah?
John Stockton.
Stockton was on the team. It was a big argument about that. We know John Stockton has some big numbers in terms of assists. I think he had the record for assists. He had Karl Malone to pass the ball to constantly because of the give and go, and a lot of that had to do with that. He was a solid shooter, but he wasn't a dominant and a better point guard than Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah definitely should have got on that team in front of Stockton. But I do believe that Stockton should have made the team as well. Yeah. So,
somebody had to go though. And to remind you guys, I know we have about 25 minutes left, but you can definitely call in if you guys are interested in chiming in and going live with me and my pops. Let us know. You know what? Let's talk about something else that's kind of interesting. I want to see what the people think about this, because, like I mentioned early in the episode, I watched the interview. Charles Barkley did an interview with the Dan Patrick Show. I guess it was this past week, and it was about 20 minutes long, whatever the case might be. But you know how Charles is. He's a straight shooter. So I thought it was interesting what he said about Bulls management. So if you can think back to after episodes 1 and 2, and then we came on here for our first reaction to those episodes, and we were talking a lot about, we were giving Jerry Krause a lot of heck.
Yeah, we were.
And we were, we were bringing Jerry Reinsdorf to the front of the congregation as well, but we were definitely going in on Jerry Krause. And I think out of everybody that's watching this right now, I feel like Frank, my guy Frank, is like the only one that was really trying to take up for Jerry Krause. But Charles Barkley said something interesting. He said you had to be crazy to think that Jerry Krause single-handedly ended that dynasty. He said it's so interesting that this man is laid to rest. He's no longer with us. Jerry Reinsdorf is still here, and he's sitting here just kind of throwing this man under the bus. He said, and this is what Charles said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, look, bottom line is this. He said something along the lines of, look, Jerry Reinsdorf did not want to pay his players. He was a cheap owner. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, that's the main reason why the dynasty ended. He said if he wanted that dynasty to continue, there's no way that he was going to let Jerry Krause, come in there and mess that whole thing up.
Right.
I thought that was interesting because I even said about when we were talking about the whole Pippen controversy, I said, how is it that you're the owner of this organization and you're sitting down with your star player and you're saying, Scotty, that's not a good contract. Mm-hmm. Well, why does he even have the contract in the first place? Mm-hmm. So do you think that right now he's kind of taking the back seat as a villain and Jerry Krause is just kind of being piled on?
Well, he's trying to take a back seat, but we understand that he is part of the problem. And one of the reasons being is that he gave Phil Jackson $6 million for 1 year.
Yeah.
He knew that he was just giving him a deal for 1 year. It was probably an agreement between him and Krause. And not only that, you got to understand, he was not getting the credit as an owner like he wanted to. And I'm sure him and Jerry Krause had those discussions. What about the management? We should be recognized as the people that put this thing together, not just the players. So he was probably feeling that way, but he just didn't want to be out in front.
You talking about Reinsdorf?
Reinsdorf, yeah. So he probably wanted Krause to be the fall guy.
That's so weak.
And that's probably the way it was.
That's so weak.
And because he also worked with him for his baseball team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's how they had.
So they had a relationship, right? Exactly. So he had to make sure he protected himself and allow him to be the fall guy. And because otherwise, can you imagine people booing him when he came into his own stadium? That would have been rough. He didn't want to have to live that out.
And that's what they were doing that to Jerry Krause. Though.
Right, exactly.
We saw the footage of him walking out after they won the 5th title, and they booing him as he's coming out there to get his ring.
Right.
I knew Frank was gonna like this. He said Team Krause, of course. I'm still not Team Krause, by the way, but he said, this is true. He said this is a good point because we saw the development of Phil Jackson in those last episodes last Sunday. We saw the development of him. I had no idea that he had coached in Puerto Rico, coaching the ABA, all these other places before he reached the point of becoming an assistant with the Bulls. Mm-hmm. He was taking a back seat to Doug Collins, who was doing it, who Mike loved at the time. Right. Doug Collins kept that basketball in his hands, as he said. But when Phil came along and he got that opportunity to be the head coach, that's when he implemented that triangle offense and trying to show Mike that, look, we need you to be the main guy, but we also need to make sure that you get the help from everybody else so we can really get to the promised land. And Frank said here, you got to give Jerry Krause some credit. He had the intelligence to bump Phil Jackson as to coach, even after Doug Collins made it to the Eastern Conference.
And I was getting ready to jump on that because I agree with you on that because he did have some conversations behind the scene, got him connected with Tex Winters so they could work on that behind the scenes. And I think the coach actually knew that he was on his way out the door. He saw it all unfolding. And I think that's why we have those dynasties after all, because I still don't know if they would have gotten there with Doug Collins. Because when it all was said and done, he would have had to create a way to free Michael Jordan up when he was being doubled and triple teamed. And that would have been difficult to get to that next level if he didn't have a strategy. And I think that triangle offense was a great strategy to free them up, keep the ball moving, and allow them to other guys to be involved to help the team win.
Absolutely. You know what else is interesting, Pops? The fact that, and Rob Parker, shout out to Rob Parker, he brought this up when he was on my IG Live series a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about Pippen in the migraine game. And this was 1990. This was the Eastern Conference Finals before they actually got over that hump. Mm-hmm. And they were in a Game 7 situation. Here, Pippen has a migraine, and they ended up losing the game. I don't think it was a close game either. But Robin made a good point. He said that could have, and I was thinking about this when I looked at it. I'm like, this it's even more impressive that they were able to come back from that and still get over the hump, because that could have been something that really
that could have destroyed them.
everything.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I still don't understand how that migraine came about. But obviously, I don't know if it was pressure or stress, because he knew what he was getting ready to go up against.
Yeah.
But obviously, it happened. I don't think he would have just purposely done that unless he got paid off. But that's a whole nother discussion, right?
And he still played too. And I was saying to you, I said with that, if I'm you and I'm watching this live back in the day, I'm like, okay, he still played. That to me,
he
that's
just
still
played
still
so badly, man. It
yeah,
just
but I
was
mean,
weird.
but a migraine. Listen, a migraine is not anything to play with. I've heard of people who have gotten migraines and they're no longer here.
Right.
So when I saw that footage, I'm like,
chance,
man, the fact that he still went out there to try to get the job done, that's
well,
impressive
back in
to me,
those
man.
days, believe it or not, back in those days, guys would play injured. They played hurt. I mean, you can see a history of guys going out there when they weren't feeling well. It's not the same, unfortunately, nowadays. Guys get a little stomach ache. They want to sit on the side and take a break. And that's just the way it is.
Always trying to disrespect the new guys, man. Always trying to disrespect the new. I have a question for you. I want to go back to the Pistons really quickly. And I could, people might disagree with this, but do you think that the Pistons... Now listen, the Pistons went to 3 back-to-back championships. They lost the first one, then they eventually won the next 2. So they would, they repeated.
Right.
And then, the Bulls ended that little mini dynasty. But my question to you is, do you think that it's fair to say that, to put them up there with like the Bulls and the Lakers and the Celtics, and maybe even Philly, when you look at the fact that how they played? I mean, I'm sure they were a great team, and like you said, on paper, just all the individual talent that they had.
Right.
But the way they had to try to get it done, do you think that it's like they're looking for all this credit that they don't feel like they're getting? But I feel like the because they were dirty on the basketball court, and they weren't just beating guys just skill for skill.
Right.
I think that's why they don't always get the credit they deserve.
They might not get the credit. I think they deserve credit, but I don't think they deserve to get recognized as a great dynasty like a Lakers or Boston because of how many years they did it, and of course a Golden State. Philly only won 1 title. In my generation, and I was a big fan of theirs. Right? But they got to another one, and they were a great team, and they had some great players. But it was hard to get over that Boston Celtics over in the East, man, with all that they had. And even Dr. J, which was my favorite player before Mike came along, he had won 2 ABA championships. They didn't give a lot of attention to that. They gave most of the attention to the fact that he only won 1 NBA title.
And we were just talking about that. I think the ABA should get a lot more respect, man. The fact that he won 2 over that's he should get a lot of respect for that, man. Right. The ABA, from the documentary that I saw about him some years back, and that kind of educated me a little bit more on the ABA and just how the competition and that was better. I mean, that was better than being more impressive than being in the NBA.
That's true. But getting back to that Pistons thing, depends on what kind of ranking you want to give them, but they can get credit for winning those 2 titles as a great team during that time. But dynasty, I think they would have to do it a little longer than 2 years.
Yeah. Now, I'm with you on that. Now, look, we got about 15 minutes left. Dan, you have some explaining to do, man.
Explain it.
Because basically, like I said to you guys in the beginning of this episode, last week, a question, you did get a question about you being a fan of Golden State. And
being a bandwagon guy. Well, let me just go
alleged bandwagon fan. Can you talk about?
Well, let me just. I explained to the folks last week that I was a Philadelphia 76ers fan for many years.
That's one team.
And I was a fan of that team before they won a title. In my generation.
Go through the teams, though.
Okay. Of course, Chicago, long time champion.
And I'll Kobe over in the background.
Matter of fact, my boys will tell you because they had Chicago gear on. They had Jordan
I can't wait to
tennis shoes when they were 2 years old.
He kept me in the J's with the Bulls.
And I told y'all last week that the reason why, let me just say, the reason why I kind of backed off of Chicago is because how they did my boy Michael Jordan. Okay. And when management screwed him over, I was done with him, okay? Then moving on, I supported the Miami Heat before LeBron James, thank you. And I was with Dwayne Wade. He was I was a big supporter of Dwayne Wade. I loved his game, and I supported him for some time. He left Marquette. I was a big fan of his at Marquette, and then of course, then he went on to be a great player.
No, listen. I do. Let me come to your defense real quick about the Dwayne Wade thing. I have to say this. He was a Dwayne Wade fan before Dwayne Wade became who Dwayne Wade became, right? Before he even won a title, this man was saying what I thought was crazy at the time, that, Dwayne Wade is the best player in the league. I said, what? I said, no, Kobe. Because I wasn't even giving it to LeBron yet. Mm-hmm. I was keeping it with Kobe for a certain amount of years.
Right.
But I have to give that to him. So he was a fan of Miami way before LeBron even took his talents to South Beach. But that is his third team that he just named.
And my final one, as a 56-year-old man, was the Golden State Warriors. And I'm going to tell you, I was a fan of the Golden State Warriors before they got one title in my generation. And it was even following Steph Curry. And as you see, I'm light-skinned, he's light-skinned. Hey, we had that in common. I got a great jump shot. He has a great jump shot. So you see why I was driven to follow this young man as a college player, and then went on to support him as he became a player in the NBA. And I'm telling you, I was so overwhelmed when they put that team together and they started gelling. I know that Durant, that was a weak move. I agree 100% that Durant going there was weak. As a matter of fact, I just was looking at the game when we just beat them. When the last game when Oklahoma City got beat by my team, the Golden State Warriors, and Durant the next year chose to come and join us. And I believe he came there. Let me say this. He came there because he wanted to be a part of greatness. And that's the bottom line. He wanted to play with a team that was great. Now, you notice he wanted the attention on him. He ended up leaving after he got his titles. Because he's got some personal issues with wanting to focus on him. But he just had to face the fact he was not going to replace a Steph Curry, because Steph Curry had been on that team since he came into the league, and the people loved him, and they were going to continue in that love. But these are the teams. Philly, of course, Allen Iverson, big fan of Allen Iverson. Baltimore, product of D.C., Georgetown.
So you were a team of that Philly team too?
Oh yeah, I just supported the time when Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was my boy, but I was not following them. That was not my team, because Jordan, the Chicago Bulls, was my team for the majority of the years.
I have to listen. I gotta come. I'm gonna come to your defense.
Okay.
I told you I'm gonna come to your defense. I gave this disclaimer when I posted a snippet of you talking like this from last week. Okay. Because I do have to give you credit. He was with the Bulls for 14 years. 14 seasons, he was a diehard.
They dissed my boy. I had to drop him. That's the bottom line.
So I gotta get that to you.
Still don't want nothing to do with the Chicago Bulls to this day.
We not
you know what I mean? So,
and then Julius, I already knew about how your love for Dr. You introduced me to that history. So I get that. Even though one could say, "Well, you more a fan of Dr. J or the team?" But it's fine. No, it's fine.
No,
and then we'll get to Miami.
Andrew Toney.
Okay,
can I keep on going?
Go ahead.
Chocolate Thunder. Come on now.
That's a terrible nickname.
We can keep on going now. Maurice Cheeks. Hollins.
Okay, all right, Kobe. Well,
Bobby Jones.
I just want to say I can give you that. I can come to your defense a little bit there.
Gotcha.
You were with these teams for lengthy periods of time, but I'm going to be honest with you. The fact that you have you disowned Golden State this year, that's concerning. But I'm gonna let Kobe.
Do I have to explain?
Hold on.
Okay, Kobe.
Kobe. This is like father, like son, and son. Go.
I'm not on
Kobe,
camera.
you want to come on camera? I'll move out of the way.
I'm not on camera. But I can say some word. All right, so I agree with my dad about the Heat thing. He was a Heat fan before LeBron even came there.
Yep.
But then when LeBron went to Cleveland, the first year he was a LeBron fan. He was a Cleveland fan. Then they got to the finals with Golden State, and then all of a sudden he talking about Steph Curry, talking about Klay Thompson. I'm like, when did you even become a Warriors fan? And then after that, he been claiming that he was a fan of Steph Curry in college. Never heard him say anything about Steph Curry in college. Never heard you say anything about
Sweet 16. Come on now, baby. Well, you got to understand about Kobe. Kobe, he wasn't always around the house.
No, I was around.
He didn't spend a lot of time in the house.
My dad was a LeBron fan. My dad was a LeBron fan.
Got some questions
then once Golden State won,
you trying to cut Kobe?
I didn't mean to cut you off, Kobe.
Is he making some very intriguing points there? We're gonna make this like an ongoing thing. where he has to explain himself. But I think that today you that was a good
Hey,
explanation.
Mr. Larkins, you got to come out there, give me a little love and
Oh
support.
no,
man.
he commented on something, but we got like 9 minutes left, so let me get to some people. No, this is this is Hooper. He said Terrell Davis had a migraine in the Super Bowl. It was so bad that he couldn't see. He went in for one play as a decoy. Other than that, he wouldn't have been effective after that migraine. So that's a, thank you for bringing that up, Hooper, because that's why I can sympathize with Pippen.
That saves Pippen, Hoop.
I don't think deep down, I don't think that MJ really respects that. I don't think he truly 100% believes Pippen, because you even saw in the footage where he got interviewed. I guess this was all done within the last year.
He said
the migraine.
I guess it depends on the fact that could have had a more serious injury and damage to him. If we don't know the whole history of what it was, I just don't understand why they didn't take him out and let the doctors take a look at him. I'm just saying.
Look what Derek said here. This has me laughing too. He said, Draymond Green said they're hands down, the Golden State dynasty, they're hands down the best team of all time. And Derek said, I'm not sure you can say that about yourself. That's true.
Well, I don't know how you can say that about himself, because I don't think that it's hands down myself. So Draymond is a different kind of character. Kind of reminds me of Scotty.
Hold on.
What's the next
one? No. That's true. But listen real quick. That's true though, man. I mean, how can you? The Bulls won 6 championships in 8 seasons. We were talking about this other day, and no one ever took them off the throne.
Right.
They took themselves off the throne because MJ left in '93 for some baseball, and then in '98 the management broke them up.
Right.
Golden State, these guys got the. I mean, I understand that Toronto beat them when they weren't healthy, but they lost in the finals.
Yeah.
That last
Plus,
year,
a lot of people, even though I know it could have gone different ways, but even when they played Cleveland, Kyrie was hurt, and they had another top player in their starting lineup that was hurt, and then we beat them. So you just never know. So hey, I think he just needs to back off on that point.
And Frank said, Frank came to your defense last week, but this week it looks like you're confusing him a bit, because he said it almost sounds like your dad doesn't know any losing seasons, man. He just does he leave the team when they start to lose?
Losing seasons. What you mean? Which team are you talking about?
He said it sounds like you jump off as soon as the losing starts.
Oh, you talking about because of what Karl said. Hey, look, I don't like sitting and watching the bench team. That's what we had last year, was the bench team. Straight up. I did look at a few games. They played pretty strong. So I was able to identify a few of the players. But I'm going to be honest with you, man. Straight up, let the bench team play until my boys come back and we can take over where we left off.
And look, to kind of to your defense, when I'm a diehard Lakers fan. When they were trash for a little bit, I was still watching. Here's the difference: I was still truly faithfully watching, not maybe as faithfully as the last couple of years.
Maybe a quarter of the game,
but I wasn't talking any trash about the Lakers. I wasn't bringing them up in my group chats. I wasn't mentioning them guys because they were garbage for a while.
Right.
And my boy Brandon said, "Karl, stop being mean to your pops." My bad, bro. My bad. I'm coming to his defense a little bit though.
Yeah, I'm not taking it personally.
And then John just said, "Yeah, you credit for not hopping over to the Lakers." Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't jump.
And I'm gonna tell you something, man. The bottom line is, I was a big Kobe fan. Matter of fact, I named my son after Kobe Bryant, but we just spelled it differently.
COLBY.
That's false.
I'm the only one that knows that too.
I remember
my wife might not have gone with it if she knew.
Shout out to Brandon. What's up, bro? He chimed in last week too. He said he had to jump ship from the Wizards to the Lakers. He said, so I don't blame Mr. Karl. He said the older you get, the more you realize the front office can ruin the fun.
That's right.
That's true.
That's
a good point.
Good
That's
word,
a good point. Man. And welcome to Laker Nation #Lake Show. That's definitely my team. I hope that we can salvage the season in some way, because I really think that we were on our way to winning a chip, but it's all good. Let me see what we got here. Hooper, what do you say? I gotta give it to you, Karl Sr. He knows his basketball and likes good basketball. Thus switching teams.
Hey man, if you want to enjoy some good ball, you gotta stay updated with the best teams out there.
Frank said Kobe's going on punishment for jumping.
Oh yeah, he won't be driving the car for a while.
And then Derek said, "I got you, Mr. Carl."
Hey,
He said,
I'm speaking facts.
"Look, Derek said, I'm with you, Mr. Carl." He said, "Why do people act like you can't like more than one team?"
Hey man,
I mean, I'm different.
that's the truth.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. But my thing is like, I guess for me, because I'm more of like I stick with the team, but then I like certain like pockets of players, right? So I can definitely say that. But like with the Bulls, I can honestly say that I was a diehard Bulls fan mainly because of you, our rapport, our relationship, and then I gotta shout out my guy Derek because he kind of introduced me to the Lakers, like the young Kobe and I kind of just took it and ran with it from there. So I've only been
a Kobe fan for years, man. Been a Kobe fan for years, just and a Magic fan. So I got a lot of respect for the Lakers and what they were able to accomplish.
And then Derek said Draymond Green, his career stats is 10-7. He's got to relax. And then Jonathan said Draymond Green is trash without Steph and Clay. Yo, hey, we talked about this week because it's interesting to me. Where were you at this past season when your team needed you? When Steph was out, Clay was out,
real.
KD was gone, Boogie
was
gone. It was like, man, he was
court.
missing time, and I didn't know if he was hurt or what. He was suited up.
Because I think he realized that he's nothing without those guys, bottom line. And I agree with that point about Draymond.
And shout out to my guy Hollywood X Media. He's been tuning into a lot of the series, man. He said he's a diehard Miami Heat fan. And in Miami, it's like they have a resurgence right now because they're looking good. We got like 2 minutes left, so I do want to quickly just say, because I told the people we were going to do this. MJ versus Kobe. At the peak of their careers, we had this conversation.
Okay. It's not really going to be a long one because it's really just right to the point.
At the peak of in going 1-on-1, 7-game series. Forget about the accolades, the championships. We're just talking about MJ as a basketball player versus Kobe Bryant as a basketball player. 7 games in 1-on-1.
Kobe
What do you think
Bryant
happens?
learned how to play the game because he was inspired by Michael Jordan. He learned from Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Michael Jordan was his mentor.
Okay.
We all know that. Even Kobe Bryant would say so. A lot of his moves were very similar to what Michael Jordan was able to do. But I think overall, Michael Jordan is the better player and would have won in a 1-on-1 situation.
So what's the series? What's the count?
You was best of 7.
Best of 7.
Oh, best of 7. Probably 4-1.
Jonathan is tripping.
What Jonathan?
He said MJ 7 out of 7. Man, get.
All right, Jonathan. I'm closer to what you're saying, my brother.
Oh, you guys are tripping. Listen, at the end of the day, first of all, I think
specialized in 1-on-1 play.
No. Well, here's the thing.
He's
they
the
both
one
did.
that taught him different things.
I know you're gonna go with teacher. You're gonna go with teacher
beat
beat student. But I'm just simply saying I think that every game will be. Thank you. Oh, okay. Every game will be. Derek said every game will be close, but Jordan got it. This is my thing. Jordan will win the series.
Right.
But to me, this is my personal opinion. It's disrespectful to say that Jordan would beat this man in a 7 games like a sweep. That's not in my opinion.
I'm not saying necessarily a sweep.
That is not.
I'm not saying
happening.
I'm not saying necessarily.
Maybe 4-2. Maybe even to go 7 games 4-3. But he's not getting a sweep on Kobe, and he's not getting a gentleman's sweep on Kobe, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well,
man.
I mean, everybody has an opinion, that's what this show is all about: opinions. One thing I do want to say: do you have more time? Because it is one other thing.
We got 40 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, 40 seconds.
I'll let you close.
Next week we want to talk a little bit, guys, about
give him that.
about Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Isaiah Thomas said in an interview recently that he would go with LeBron James to start a team with because he starts from the neck up. Okay, in other words, and he had some good points. I'm gonna give it to him, but I don't agree.
20 seconds.
He was talking about the fact that LeBron James came out of high school into the pros and all that he's learned and developed over the years. But he forgot to mention that he's gained a lot of knowledge from players like D. Wade, Kobe Bryant.
Thank you for tuning in, guys.
Michael Jordan.
Episode 2. We'll be back next week.